What's up, everybody? Jordan here with the deck box, coming back to you today with one of the weirdest deck profiles I think I've done in a while. And yes, I know I just did Pyroar. I know I've done Rampardos in the past, but I think this is probably the weirdest one, and probably the one where a lot of people will really question my sanity. The list I'm looking at is going over the Abomasnow that's coming out in Forbidden Light. If you didn't know, this card was originally released in Ultra Prism. It was a water type, and it was reprinted in Forbidden Light as a grass type. And I think whenever I first looked at these cards, I said that the water type was better. You know, it had Aqua Patch, yada yada yada, all these things. But looking at the current meta, I feel like this grass one could be a little bit better. And I'm trying to look into the future a little bit. What I'm seeing is we have Zygarde GX that came out in Forbidden Light, and we're going to see pretty soon how well that does. But I was kind of looking at something that's like a direct counter to Zygarde without having to be attack. You know, I know we have the Shaman from Shining Legends that has the, what is it, like a revenge something that can basically one-shot these things. But I wanted something, like I said, that was just kind of a hard counter. And to me, Abomasnow was kind of that answer. You know, Zygarde prevents EX and GXs from attacking it with its GX attack. So I figured let's put Abomasnow out there. It's a non-GX. And at the same time, let's give it weakness too. And we can one-shot this thing and just kind of handle it. Plus, Abomasnow can kind of handle some other decks on its own. So I figured I'd give it a shot, just take a look at it, have some fun with it. I know a lot of people are opening up boxes this week, and the main thing that I'm thinking about too is when you open these boxes, some people go out and buy cases and cases and cases. You're going to have what you need. Some people buy singles. You're going to have what you need. But then there's people that buy like a box here or there, or some packs here or there. So you might not draw all the GXs you need right away, but something you probably will draw pretty quickly is your Abomasnows and your Snovers. So I was like, let's do something for people that are getting the boxes early and don't necessarily have everything they need for these bigger decks. Let's give them something fun to play with. That sounded very kiddie. Something fun to play test with and to beat big GX decks with. That sounds better. So Abomasnow is the answer for that. As you can see at the bottom, timestamps are available in the description. As usual though, guys, please hang out and watch the video as long as you can, and because it kind of helps explain how the deck runs. Moving into the list, maybe. There we go. All right, so first things first, looking at the Abomasnow line, something to note on both the Snover and the Abomasnow is they do have 3 retreat costs, so that's not the greatest thing in the world, but that's okay. You know, there's Floatstone, there's Heavy Ball, things like that, neither of which I play on this list, but we can talk about that later. And then the other thing is Snover is probably one of the better basic evolving Pokemon. A lot of them have between 50 and 70 HP. Snover is a hardy 80 HP, so very unlikely to be one-shot by anything. It'd basically take like a Buzzwole Strong Energy, Diancie, Regirock EX combo to pull that off, which is doable. We've seen it happen. But at the same time, it's a little less likely it's less likely that it'll happen every single turn. And there's not many other things that could one-shot it the first turn either. So that's one thing to note. Then the first attack for a grass and a colorless does 20 damage, and then if you're up against a fighting Pokemon, it does an additional 40. So that's pretty solid if you have this thing out and you know, just take a big chunk out of a Zygarde or a Lycanroc, you know, any sort of fighting Pokemon that's also weak to grass. You're swinging for 120. If you add a Choice Band onto this thing, you're doing what, 90, 180 damage with a Snover. I mean, it could get pretty crazy. So that's something to consider. You know, maybe late game if you're having a little bit of difficulty. That one shot's a Regirock EX, so there's something to consider, something I hadn't thought of before. But really the main thing that we're looking at here is Abomasnow, and this is kind of the fun part of the deck. So it's 130 HP, stage 1 Pokemon, has the ability Blessing of the Frost-Covered Trees. That's a mouthful. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may attach a grass energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So, real quick, I need to talk about the elephant in the room. This thing has 4 energy attack cost on its only attack. So it's not like it has an attack that you can use while you're trying to build up to the second attack. No, it has 1 attack, that's it. That's what you're stuck with. This ability helps you to be able to build that attack up. And you're like, yeah, that's 1 energy. Where are you going to get the other 3? Okay, let's break this down. Turn 1. Let's say I go first. I get my grass attachment for the turn. I'm on the bench, I'm protected. Buzzwell's not going to OHKO me. Turn 2, I attach a DCE, I evolve to a Zoroark, I trade away a Grass Energy, I get my Abomasnow, whether through Ultra Ball or just hard draw. I evolve the Abomasnow, I get the Grass Energy from the discard pile. I have my 4 energy on turn 2. I'm ready to go, I'm swinging for 80 damage. At a choice band, I'm up to 110, and as I mentioned before, we're really trying to target down Zygarde GX and potentially Lycanroc. So we're swinging for 110, and with weakness, you're looking at 220 damage. That one shots both Lycanroc and drawing a blank, Zygarde GX, Zygarde EX, Regirock EX, all these different rock Pokemon. And I have a feeling that they're going to be pretty big in the future. So that's pretty solid on its own, swinging for 110, which will one-shot those. It two-shots pretty much every other Stage 1 Pokemon in the game, and all the other big GXs and EXs. It gets right up to 220 with two-shot. But what it also does is it puts your opponent's active Pokemon to sleep, which if you don't know the rules of sleep, basically you have to roll out of it. If you don't roll out of it, you can't attack, you can't retreat. You have to use Guzma or a switching card, something to get out of the active. And if you can't, you're just kind of stuck there for Abomasnow to two-shot you without you doing anything to him. So that's really, really solid. It kind of prevents your opponent from playing the game the way they want to. If you're able to prevent them from having the cards they need when they need them, they're not going to be able to Guzma around. Also, they might be Guzmaing when they don't want to Guzma. They might use a Sycamore that turn, or Cynthia, or even an N, but they have to Guzma or they're going to get knocked out. And even in that case, they're Guzmaing around Abomasnow, and Abomasnow is still set up after that. He can come right back out, finish things off, and give up one prize at the end of the day. So I think it could be really, really solid. Plus paired with Zoroark here, Zoroark could potentially do 150 with a choice band. So maybe you're up against Stage 2 like Guardy or Decidueye or Metagross, and they have 230, 240, 250. Abomasnow can't two-shot that, but Abomasnow can hit it once, put it to sleep, they stay there, then you get Zoroark out there to clean things up with his attack, and they just kind of work hand in hand with each other. Which brings us to the next point. We do play a 4-4 Zoroark GX line. I've kind of already talked about that. We use the trade ability to get the Grass Energy in there, and also to trade away cards we don't need, to get our pieces, to get our Abomasnows, and to get things set up appropriately. And then Ride Speeding, of course, is a solid attack. Moving on, these are our support Pokemon. Obviously, Tapu Lele is going to be on our list. We play 2 in this list for Wonder Tag to be able to get the supporters that we need when we need, because nothing better than Guzma for game, and Lele will definitely help us to accomplish something like that. Then we do play 1 Mew EX. Obviously, with Buzzwole being very big and Lucario being as big as it is, we want to use Mew to hit for weakness, and it has that versatile ability where it can copy the attacks of any Pokemon in play. As long as it has the energy requirements met, then it can hit for weakness. So what you're going to do is you're going to use Mew to copy Zoroark GX and swing for just massive numbers and one-shot Buzzwalls. So that's what Mew's there for. And then we have Sudowoodo to hit fighting weakness with Watch and Learn. If your opponent's Pokemon uses an attack during his or her last turn, use it as its attack. We do, of course, run counter energy in our list to be able to accomplish this. So between Abomasnow, Mew, Sudowoodo, you're hitting for 3 different weaknesses. You could count Zoroark's weakness, your hitting weakness, if you play against Lunala or something like that. Not super common right now, but it is something to consider. Moving on to our supporters. This is kind of my standard Zoroark GX draw support line. 3 Cynthia, 2 N, 1 Sycamore. I feel like it's sufficient enough. Having Zoroark set up, being able to trade through my deck, kind of gives me a free supporter each turn. So having 6 of these is fine. Plus we do play puzzles, so we can recycle them. Then from there, my other supporters are, of course, Guzma, Bridget, and Mallow. So Guzma, that's going to get us the knockouts that we want when we want them. We're going to be using Abomasnow as much as possible because he only gives up 1 prize, and we're going to be targeting down things that are either weak to fighting, or even if they wake up, what are they going to do to us? Maybe target down Lele's, target down Regirocks in certain lists, Lycanrocs, Zygarde GX, Zygarde EX, Regirock EX, the list goes on and on. So that's what we're using Guzma for. And then Bridget, of course, we want to get our Pokemon out as quickly as possible. And using Bridget allows us to search for 3 of those, put them onto our bench, and just keep rolling. So as I mentioned before, we want our Snovers out as quickly as possible, because then as soon as they evolve, that's a free energy attachment. You know, we can evolve as many Snover in a turn as we want, but we can't do that unless we get them out first. So that's what Bridget's there for. And then of course the remaining 2 Bridgets will just be there kind of as trade fodder for Zoroark later in the game. Which brings me to Mallow. Mallow's going to help Zoroark as well with his trades. Mallow allows you to pick 2 cards from your deck, put them on top, shuffle the rest of your deck. And so you do that, you set up maybe Counter Energy, Sudowoodo, and then you trade away something, and you draw those 2, and now you have your Sudowoodo and Counter Energy ready to go, and you should be taking a knockout on something then. That's kind of the point with that kind of combo play. So it just kind of helps you set things up. You can get your Abomasnow set up this way. You can get your Zoroark set up this way if you're really that desperate. And then moving on to items, of course we do have 2 different ball search. For Ultra Ball, this is going to do 2 things. 1, it's going to help us get our Pokemon, and 2, it's going to help us dump some grass energy into the discard pile so that Abomasnow can do what it needs to do. And then we do play 1 Timer Ball. This will allow us to draw our Abomasnows out and our Zoroarks out to just continue getting things set up and to kind of speed up the energy process. And then, as I mentioned a couple times already, we do play 4 Puzzles of Time. This way we can draw cards from our discard pile and you know, kind of reuse some effects that we had earlier in the game. Then we played 3 Field Blowers. The reason I went with such a high count is because Abomasnow, Zoroark, Mew EX, Tapu Lele, all of them use abilities. That's pretty much the main chunk of our deck, using abilities, and I don't want it to be shut out by a Garbodor. So playing the 3 tool cards playing the 3 Field Blowers is really important. Plus, we currently don't play any stadiums in this list, so I don't want my opponent to keep their stadium out to, you know, be helping hurt us, if that makes sense. Then from there, just 3 Choice Band. I mentioned early on I don't play Float Zone in this. Looking back on it now, I think there's a couple cuts you could make to fit some Float Zones in. You could very easily cut your Timer Ball, maybe the 3rd Field Blower if you really wanted to. Probably nothing there. But cutting the 3rd Field Blower or Timer Ball would not be the worst thing in the world, to add a couple Float Zones just in case you get something stuck in the active. To me, I don't see it being an issue, because if you're set up appropriately, you should be fine with, you know, whatever's attacking in the active. And then from there, I do play 9 Grass Energy. The reason I play such a high count is because I want to make sure we can get them in the discard pile as early as possible. This is another card you could probably cut down to 8 or 7 and add some Float Stones in there. I wouldn't be upset at you for that. I just wanted to kind of make it a high number to start with and kind of test from there to see how it does getting into the discard pile to be able to set up Abomasnow as quickly as possible while also getting attachments the following turn. Then from there, for DCE, of course, we have a Zoroark list. Zoroark uses DCE, Abomasnow uses DCE, Lele uses DCE. Just kind of works really, really well in this deck. And then 2 Counter Energy. This is mainly to be able to use our Sudowoodo, but at the same time, if we're really desperate and things don't set up quite the way they need to, we can use the Counter Energy on Abomasnow along with the DCE, and he's set up and ready to go in kind of a tight situation if we need it. So from there, here is the full list for you guys. As I mentioned at the beginning, just kind of a fun deck to maybe try out and you know, maybe take to your local league. If you know that people are really hyping Zygarde GX, you can just take this there and just kind of ruin their day and have a little bit of fun with it at the same time. I'll be testing it out. I think it could be a fun little deck to, you know, like I said, just have some fun with and kind of mess with people whenever they whip out their big expensive Zygarde decks, and we can pull out this cheap Abomasnow deck and hopefully wreak some havoc. So yeah, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this list. I've really enjoyed, you know, just kind of melting my brain over trying to figure out this list and have some fun with it. I always like looking through the list and say, okay, what can I make a list out of? And this time I feel like Abomasnow was kind of a fun one that I can do. You know, just kind of change things up from the typical hardcore GX decks. So yeah, so anyway, as I mentioned, I hope you've enjoyed the list. If you have, please be sure to leave a like for me. Hit me up in the comments, say hey, say you like the list, say you think it sucks, whatever. It doesn't really bother me either way. And as usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. We are just on the cusp of hitting 250 subscribers, and I greatly appreciate that, guys. I think we hit 242 right before I started recording here. So if you could help me out with that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Share the video with your friends, share previous videos with your friends, and invite them to join us here at the Deck Box. So thank you again, once again, for joining me. I have been Jordan with the Deck Box, where I want to know what's in your box. Have a great night, guys.